Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show, second hour of the program. Now, the debate over Alberta's future continuing to unfold on multiple fronts. Across the province, supporters of independence there are actively gathering signatures on a citizen initiative petition that needs 178,000 signatures by the end of May in order to get a referendum. Now, at the same time, the Alberta separatist movement has also attracted wider attention and controversy, including reports of meetings between separatist organizers and U.S. officials, raising questions about foreign involvement. There's been strong pushback from opponents of Alberta separation. I don't know if you heard the comments from BC Premier David Eby. He called the Alberta separatist movement and seeking foreign assistance, he called that an act of treason. Let's talk a little bit more about Alberta sovereignty and independence with Jeffrey Rath, a constitutional lawyer for the Alberta Prosperity Project. Jeffrey, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
So, listen, on this program, it was a week or two ago, we spoke to the Republican Party of Alberta leader Cameron Davies. He also wants separation, but he doesn't want to join the U.S. I just want to know from you, for the Alberta Prosperity Project, you are not only seeking to leave Canada, but you're very open to joining the U.S. Is that correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, tell me more.
Only the smallest proportion of our movement would be interested in U.S. statehood. The other aspect of that is that the United States themselves are not interested in having Alberta join the U.S. as a state. It would require 2/3 of the Senate. The Democrats would vote against us because Alberta clearly would be a Republican state. They would want Guam and Puerto Rico as a trade-off. It's never going to happen. We're very clear about the fact that we are seeking a free and independent country, free and independent from Canada, free and independent from the United States.
Have you met with U.S. officials seeking some type of support?
Well, we have ongoing meetings with officials in the United States. We update them on what's going on in Alberta, and we discuss with them ways in which, hypothetically, in the future, the United States could be of assistance to a free and independent Alberta. We talk about our aspirations for the future, including a pipeline that bypasses British Columbia to the Pacific Northwest. And from our perspective, these meetings have been paying dividends because just a week or so ago, Secretary of State Scott Bessent came out and publicly stated that the United States government would support a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific Northwest. And that's what David Eby was reacting to when he was calling us treasonous and calling us traitors, is we're taking his power away, right? So, he doesn't like the fact that he can't assert a veto over Alberta, the oil and gas development. He's like a 4-year-old child jumping up and down, throwing a tantrum because we've taken away his favorite toy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what that's all about. We're not doing anything wrong. I mean, the Canadian government itself solicited foreign interference in the 1995 referendum. They had Bill Clinton come up to speak to the Canadian Parliament against Quebec sovereignty. So, was that treasonous to Quebec? Was that underhanded? Was that the Canadian government soliciting foreign interference against the aspirations of people in Quebec? I mean, to the extent that was such a narrow margin, was Bill Clinton's involvement in that referendum campaign at the request of the Canadian government the only reason that Quebec isn't free today?
Well, listen,
we don't think we're doing anything wrong, I guess, is the short answer.
And obviously people have pointed out that the government of Quebec had lobbied the French government, right, in the same type of, had discussions with French officials in the lead up to the referendum. So this kind of stuff does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We understand that people are upset. I mean, we understand that people in Ontario are very upset that they're going to have to pay their own bills for the first time ever. We understand that people in Ontario are upset that they're going to have to, finally step up and shoulder the burden of carrying the welfare economy of the Maritimes on their back for the first time ever. We understand that that's upsetting to people, but they also have to understand that Albertans are completely fed up and we're leaving, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
Jeffrey, is there any way to stop that? Like, if there was another government, right, that was more receptive to your concerns, and that would give Alberta much of what it wants. We've seen in Quebec, sometimes you give Quebec enough powers, it can lead to a lowering of support of sovereignty. Is there any scenario in which a Canadian government in Ottawa could listen to Albertans enough that you'd give up that movement?
Absolutely not. We're at a point now where we're completely done with Canada. Albertans have been so abused and so hard done by the Canadian Confederation. That's why people are lining up for miles and miles and miles into the dark January nights of an Alberta winter. Right? I mean, Pierre Poilievre could get elected tomorrow, and he could give us our guns back, and he could, undo the West Coast tanker ban, the emission caps, all the rest of it. That wouldn't change the imbalances within Confederation. The Maritimes have 30 Senate seats to Alberta's 6. We have twice their population. We send $15 billion a year to Quebec because Quebec fraudulently cooks its books by exempting its Hydro-Quebec revenue from equalization. It's been doing it for decades. Alberta has been getting screwed every time we turn around by people that literally defraud us. We're tired of it. Confederation doesn't work for Alberta. It works for Quebec because the only way governments get elected in Canada is because certain people in Montreal can be convinced to vote for the governing party. That's what keeps us being governed under communist liberal tyranny for decades is Montreal. So, I think Montreal and Toronto got together. They decided they didn't want Alberta to be part of Canada anymore. And they elected Mark Carney in the last election. And we're grateful for it.
Can I just ask you, do you really feel...
Don't get me wrong, we're grateful.
Do you really feel it's tyranny?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every time we turn around, somebody at a whim makes a stupid law to irritate us or destroy our economy. Quebec wants all of us to support them. Everybody in Quebec wants to be supported by Alberta. $15 billion a year goes into Quebec from Alberta. And what do we get for it? Oh, no coast-to-coast pipeline. Oh, no filthy oil going through our province. It's ludicrous. Quebec wants our dirty money, but they won't allow our dirty oil to pass through their province in a pipeline.
Can I ask you if you've spoken to Quebec separatists? I mean, it seems like both Quebec separatists, Alberta separatists, you both have your issues with Ottawa and how things are run and things that are imposed on the provinces here. Have you had discussions? Do you see any parallels in both your movements?
Well, yes. Certainly. I mean, I think the people that believe in sovereignty in Quebec are sick and tired of the corruption of Ottawa. And I think they believe that Quebec could be much better run and could have a much better future without Ottawa, even without Alberta's $15 billion a year, right? You don't need our money, right? You don't. You're just being mismanaged by Ottawa. And the $15 billion in so-called equalization that goes to Quebec, it doesn't really go to Quebec. It gets absorbed by corrupt liberal projects in Quebec, and they call it equalization. I mean, it's ludicrous the way the system runs. And I think that's the one thing that Le Parti Québécois and the separatists or the independence movement in Alberta have in common is that we are all sick and tired of being governed by completely corrupt politicians in Ottawa. Like, who does anybody in Canada? Does anybody believe that of the $69 billion that Canada sent to Ukraine, that a lot of it didn't get filtered through the black hole of Ukraine into liberal offshore bank accounts? Does anybody believe that's even possible?
Listen, let me add, we have to wrap up the interview, Jeffrey, but I want to ask you one thing. I've done a few interviews now on Alberta sovereignty separation. And the other people I've talked to have been a little bit more reserved. Whereas your language, we just heard it there, you're bombastic, you will levy charges. You're really emphatic about your cause. Do you think...
We're not mincing words. I mean, the time for mincing words is over. I mean, we're leaving, period.
You're leaving, period. There's no going back. But I look at the polling, doesn't seem like you could win a referendum right now.
Well, there's a new Ecos poll that came out the other day that has us at 41%. Our own internal polling has us at 40% in the cities and 60% in rural Alberta. And that's only 4 weeks into a petition campaign. We have it's a 16-week campaign. We have 12 weeks to go, and that's just to get the referendum on the ballot. I will bet you, have me back on in 12 weeks, and I'll bet you that we'll be over 50% in popular support in 12 weeks. Every time Carney opens his mouth, he sends another 100,000 Albertans to our banner and reminds them to go sign a petition. He almost declared war on the United States a week and a half ago. We got another 100,000 supporters.
Well, I'll tell you something.
He invoked Article 5 of the NATO treaty against the United States over Greenland. Do you know how destabilizing that is? Do you understand, from an international relations perspective, how ridiculous Mr. Carney is when he swears allegiance to communist China and invokes the New World Order while he's in Beijing? Like the Filipino
I'll tell you, listen,
let me finish point.
Jeffrey,
Go
Jeffrey,
ahead.
I'll just tell you, I'm no fan of the Mark Carney government. I've said it very often here. I'm not happy with our economic performance. I'm sure you're not either, and I've got many qualms. But I think some people would disagree with your assessment of those things. But I'll leave you with this, and that is, if you look at Quebec history, once you call that referendum, once you're going to the polls, all bets are off, and you could end up in a 50-50 scenario very, very quickly.
Alberta isn't Quebec. Albertans are serious people. We move forward in a serious way. And when Albertans make up their mind to leave, they're leaving. There will be no turning us back. We're serious people.
Mr. Rath, Jeffrey, thanks for coming on, and maybe we should catch up in a few weeks. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Jeffrey Rath is a constitutional lawyer for the Alberta Prosperity Project.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.